everything Triple H did that year. If you just looked from the beginning.
Well, you're not a Triple H fan, though.
I'm not a Triple H fan because of what his career ended up becoming with Evolution and holding the title for so long, and just sort of main eventing a lot of those WrestleManias where I felt like he didn't really have great matches at WrestleMania. It was just Vince McMahon playing it safe, putting Triple H in the main event. That's what WWE does. I didn't like that. But 2000, Triple H was really in his prime. He looked like a friggin' superhero. He was so cut. He was so jacked. And
look at that body.
Look at that body. No, he was so lean. He was just in great shape. If you look at his match with Cactus Jack at the Royal Rumble, and then the Hell in the Cell the next month, and then you look at his matches with The Rock, the Iron Man match with The Rock, probably matches, in my opinion, the first Iron Man match with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, only in a different way. Not in terms of wrestling, but in terms of drama. At the end of that match, the whole crowd, they were throwing trash at Triple H. You can't get a better heel reaction than if they're throwing trash at you.
That shit worked.
Yeah, a few months later, 2 months later, Jericho and Triple H had an awesome Last Man Standing match. Awesome. Honestly, for me, when I think about a year, I usually think about one guy. If it was 96, it was Michaels. If it was 98, it was Austin. For 2000, I feel like it was Triple H.
Well, what about The Rock?
The Rock had a great year, too. I'm not saying he wasn't good. The Rock was awesome. He was in full swing. He was cutting great promos. He was making the whole crowd crack up laughing. He was awesome. And he if it wasn't for The Rock, those Triple H matches wouldn't have worked, obviously. He got great heel reactions, but The Rock was a great face. And it really worked that year in that main event scene. It was really awesome.
And let's not forget about Kurt Angle. Oh, as the year progressed, Angle just got better from every single month on. And his character was just freaking hilarious.
It was funny. It was very funny. Yes, his angle with Stephanie, no pun intended, with Stephanie McMahon.
Yeah.
And he takes her back and he kisses her.
Yeah.
That was, I mean.
It was a really fun storyline.
That was really fun.
And then you had some great tag teams as well. You had the Hardys, Edge and Christian, the Dudleys, the TLC matches.
Oh my God, the tag team scene, I actually wasn't a huge fan of it myself, but I know that so many people love those TLC matches that you have to consider that when you think about 2000. Yeah.
So are we leaving anything out? Stone Cold Steve Austin actually came back, and they had this huge storyline about who hit Austin. What do you think of that? Being Rikishi being the accomplice to Triple H?
I mean, it was the Rikishi thing was a little dumb, but it still worked. And when Austin came back, people were ready. I think people were ready for it. Because I think people, as good as the stuff was going on with The Rock and Triple H and everything else, I think it was a lot of fun to see Austin come back. Because it was almost like his momentum had been cut short. 99, it still had only been like a year and a half since he was on top of pro wrestling. Right. So he comes back and he still gets those great reactions, and people are still going crazy for Steve Austin. But when he came back, he had to share the spotlight with The Rock. Because The Rock was getting just as big of reactions as he was.
So would you say by that time you think Rock surpassed Austin as far as popularity goes?
In some ways, but I think Steve Austin, maybe you're right. Perhaps he did, but they were still the two of the biggest baby faces ever in pro wrestling history. I don't want to leave out other things that happened that year. I don't want to leave out Jericho and Benoit had a boatload of great matches. They had the SummerSlam 2 out of 3. They had a submission match at Judgment Day that was awesome. I think they had another match at Backlash. I mean, just great wrestling from Jericho and Benoit.
Yeah. Benoit came in from WCW with the Radicals.
That's right. So, Eddie Guerrero, Perry Saturn, and Dean Malenko. Dean Malenko had a lot, probably. I mean, he was great in the ring. He probably had some great.
You would think that Benoit really had to pay his dues by coming over to the WWF, but he was really pushed right away. To tell you the truth, I mean, he was in the title scene pretty much right from the get-go.
Pretty much, absolutely, yeah. I mean, he really, the way he came in, he fought The Rock that year at Fully Loaded.
Yeah.
And that was an exciting match. It was exciting because you have The Rock, who's just, he's on top of the WWE. You've got Chris Benoit as this wrestling machine, and Chris Benoit actually, almost wins the title in that match. That's fun to watch. That's fun to watch.
And people don't agree with me on this, but I thought Benoit was actually a lot better on the mic in 2000 than he was before the whole tragedy, and even when he came back after the neck surgery. I mean, you could definitely see he was just a lot more with it at that time.
Before the tragedy?
Yeah.
After the tragedy, obviously he wasn't very good on the mic. Not to joke around too much. I know what you mean. No, one of the reasons why he was great back then was because he was a heel. And maybe somewhere along the line he just lost it. If you look at promos Benoit did back when he was in ECW and WCW, he cut really good promos back then too. I don't know what happened, but he was a heel when he first came in, and he had the whole on the wrestling machine thing going on, and that was much better for him to work. He couldn't really work as a face on the mic.
But overall, you just from top to bottom, you just had an amazing scene in 2000.
Yeah.
Great tag teams and great main eventers.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's not enough. I wish we could talk more about 2000, but I think.
The storyline was, it was pretty cool. Foley as the commissioner. Let's not forget
that. Was fun. He was funny.
And
he was really funny. Yeah. It was really entertaining.
So the only weak part of 2000 was the China Jericho thing. I don't think it really panned out the way people were hoping for.
I don't think Jericho. I don't think Jericho wanted that either.
So Eddie Guerrero took over for Jericho with the Mamacita.
And that worked out.
Yeah, that worked out pretty well.
Mamacita.
And China's actually a. All right, let's not even go into it. Number one, 2000. All right, at number one, we're going to go with 2001. And we're kind of surprised that we actually came up with 2001 because there's still a lot of negative things about 2001. But overall, tell me why you picked 2001, or why 2001 was so high.
2001 was the year that I got back into professional wrestling. I know I talked a lot about 2000 and some of those other years, but I actually went back to watch matches and stuff that went on in 2000. I didn't watch while it was going on. 2001, I really got back into.
You started watching when Austin came back.
True, right? Yeah, the end of 2000, but 2001. You saw, what an amazing main event with the Rock and Steve Austin. Steve Austin was hot again, and Steve Austin turns heel. So this was something new. This was something huge. The Austin-McMahon dynamic had changed. A lot of people don't like the whole invasion thing. A lot of people cite that as that's when they started to turn their heads away, when they had the WCW guys come in. But for me, it was really exciting, because I had never seen those guys before. I didn't watch WCW, and I wasn't too familiar with ECW. So when Rob Van Dam comes in and fights Jeff Hardy in July at Vengeance, Invasion. They always mess those two around. I'm going crazy. I go up to you and I say, Robin, you got to check out this RVD guy. This guy is amazing. Yeah. Yeah, and
I was in love with the RVD in 2001. I mean, everyone was. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, he was incredible. Yeah.
I thought Booker T was hilarious at that time. He was a great athlete, and he had that feud with The Rock. The Rock was still there. Jericho was cutting great promos on Stephanie. Angle really came into his own. A lot of people would say, 2001 got hurt because Triple H tore his quad, and Benoit had to get neck surgery. Yeah. But how would you respond to that? Even people were saying that Angle, as a babyface, couldn't really cut it as the leader of the WWF.
No, it turned out that he couldn't, but it started out really well. And I think what you saw was Kurt Angle versus Steve Austin at SummerSlam, still one of my favorite SummerSlam matches. The way that whole match ended in disqualification. Sometimes people don't like disqualifications, but I thought it was perfect, because there was no better way to build up your face, to say he should have won the title, but he didn't, because Austin was just too much of a bastard. Oh my God, you were so angry when Angle didn't win that match. So no, it didn't go that great. 9/11 happened. It's not a happy year for the rest of the world, the rest of the country, what was going on. But they used Kurt Angle to beat Steve Austin a month later. He took the championship, and it was fun to see. Did it work? Like you said before, it never really worked with Angle as a face for longer than a month or two. And it's the same thing happened that year. Right, yeah. He lost the title like 2 or 3 weeks later to Austin again. And even though Benoit got hurt, and Triple H got injured. Yes, that sucked, but you did. What happened was you saw RVD and Kurt Angle fight Austin in Triple Threat. You saw all these other guys step up to the plate to bring that main event quality. If Triple H